Okay, this is the 2015 update on Ray's Fish Room. And Ray and I just came back from our fishing trip, which means we've gone out to a fish store, bought some good plants. We didn't buy any fish there, we're too expensive this year. But we stopped for lunch at Joe's Crab Shop, have a nice lunch, and then come back and visit with his tanks. So you're with us again this year. We hope we enjoy it. You enjoy it as much as you did the prior one, which, much to our surprise, has gotten over 17,000 views here on YouTube. And so, all right, Ray and Jim here again. It's January 2017, and we just came back from a fishing trip that the fish weren't running today. All we can say.
They were running high.
And this is down in Ray's Fish Room, down in his basement, sitting back enjoying the sight of his, what is that, what size tank, Ray?
That's your 50.
This is the 50 stainless steel, what's the adhesion? Tar?
Yeah, aquarium cement, whatever that was called back then.
Yeah, we've talked to you about this before. This is that tank that's been around, God, it must be 50, 60 years at this point, through various rejuvenations.
What are these cherries? Wow.
They're in their mating colors, huh?
Yeah.
They do get brilliant, especially when they start challenging each other for the female.
That one's got, look at it, dark top.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Hey, Biggin.
So going back, you're 74, 75 right now?
I got my first tank for my 10th birthday. When we lived in Irvington, a family friend of our family was the Rosemans, had a grocery store. Youngest kid was Elliot. And then we moved to Newark and Metuchen, and they moved to Plainfield.
This is all in New Jersey?
We all kept in touch, right. There was 3 sons. The youngest was Elliot. He was a little older than me. He got a pet shop in Plainfield. So we went to see it, and I was fascinated.
And you were how old again?
I was 10.
10.
I was going to be 10.
Yeah.
And my mother took me there, and Elliot was showing me the fish. He actually had an angel in a gallon jug with the wide mouth, the old pickle jars. Full-size angel. And he was afraid to take it out, and he was trying to figure out how to break the glass without hurting the angel. So we talked about it. And I don't know how we got it out. I told him to put the thing in water and cut it in half. He said, I didn't know. So I don't know how he ended, but I wound up getting a 15-gallon tank out of the deal.
Oh.
And a bunch of guppies and some zebras. And some cories, a couple of cories. And
good natural starting community fish?
Huh?
Good starting community fish?
Yep. Community tank. I had natural plants, which came and went like always. Fish lasted. I was fascinated with the zebras when you shine, or I put them in sunlight once. I reflected the sunlight, and it's almost like a glow. That stripe is really a bright, shiny stripe. It's not just a dull stripe. And the same with the dark colors on the guppies, and no 2 male guppies were alike. Holy smokes. I was hooked. From there it went to the tanks this shape, this steel, was 29 gallons. I got one of those.
Oh, big time.
Big time. And I had that for the longest time. And back then, the air pump, the good air pumps were piston. And you had to keep buying belts, and you had to oil them. And anyway, that's what got me started.
And so how old are you now?
75.
So for 65 years you've been into the fish.
Well, there was
hobby.
4 years when I was floating around in one of the world's giant fish tanks in the United States Navy. I didn't have a fish tank of my own. But
they were all around you for a change.
I actually went swimming in the middle of the ocean, and they put out, I was on a minesweeper, small boat, and they put out a rowboat here, or whatever they called it, with a guy and a rowing and another guy with a gun, and a rowboat over here, or launch, or whatever they called it, same thing, a guy working the engine and another guy with a gun. And we're all swimming around. I got back up on the deck, and I was bosun mate there, and I said, "Boats, what's the guys with the guns for?" He said, "Sharks." Oh, man. Why didn't tell me that before I went in the ocean?
You didn't ask.
I didn't ask. Anyway.
Okay, this is my friend Ray's fish room a week after his passing, and he was very sick, so he wasn't able to come down and take care of these tanks for at least a month beforehand. And his wife really wasn't part of the hobby, but she has done a yeoman's job of getting down here and cleaning up some of these tanks and consolidating things to some degree. So I'm here today to go through and get everything that can be salvaged. And they're putting things out on eBay for anybody that wants them in terms of tanks and stuff. So I'm cleaning out the plants and hopefully going to be able to recover some plants like these here. He recently did a plant buy out on the internet for about $200 and then wasn't able to take care of them. But with a lot of algae to worry about, I know we should have moved that big pleco in here, huh? All big angels left. Most of the tanks were half like this. And then we have this one tank that a neighbor is going to take on, so we're going to leave some fish in there. And then we have the big pleco that we've featured so many times before. And that darkness in the back is a pleco about 30 inches long. You've seen Ray shove him around so you could see him before. So anyway, that's the job for today, and that's the before picture. So we really have 5 big tanks to try and clean up. So that's what I'm working on. Well, we got most of the fish in these plastic containers. And of course, every time I thought I had all the tanks cleared out, we had a couple hideouts show up. This one is the big pleco. It's 36 inches long. He gave me a total bath in trying to catch him. So I took the bucket, put it in the tank, and cornered him in the corner. Once he got in, he splashed, and I held on. Over here we've got a yellow tang, I think it is. I could be wrong. It's a yellow cichlid of some type. Very mean fish, so it's in its own bucket. And a bag of plants upstairs, bag of plants here, of all different kinds. Mostly Java fern. But, and then over here, one with some extra supplies that turned out we didn't need. We have the angelfish, the gouramis, all the big fish, and insulated. So let's see how that works out for us, okay? Now we've got Ray's 50-year-old son with younger knees than I have, going to help us get up these stairs, which I just have to show you. And in all honesty, I can't get up those stairs without holding on to both rails. But at this point, we've got all of the filters emptied out. We've got all of the lights out, the tanks are out, heaters are all out. And so with the exception of the one neighbor's community tank that is set up here with everything from a small pleco to an angelfish looking at us there so you can't see him, a bunch of Ray's baby catfish, some black tetras, some serpay, a gold barb, And a couple of stray fish in here. That'll get them a good start. So, Ray's legacy lives on. Here's the pleco home.
Okay, one pleco and a gold stickling. Pleco is all the way in the back. He likes the back wall because I'm not there. But this is he. Come on, buddy. There he is.
Oh, yes.
Goes right back to the back. The sticker.
Now bring him out again.
Come on, bud. Come on. Attaboy.
There we go. Oh, yes.
Oh,
Ray's fish room. Rest in peace, Ray. Well, this is that corner tank that is always so well populated with a bunch of Ray's leftover fish here. You see a foursome of tiger barbs. There's 3 down the lower left-hand side. There's a younger one someplace in here. They really hang out well together. He had a beautiful school. There's the 4th one over on the right, now coming to the center. It's almost like somebody from the school went out looking for him and said, "Where are you?"
this is my tank of tiger barb. And talk about coming and going. The Madagascar lace
Oh, yeah.
disappeared. A couple of weeks later, I got that.
Huh. I love the Madagascar lace plant.
Watch this. You want to see a feeding frenzy? Re-aim.
Yep, right there.
Here.
I got you. Wow. Yep. And these are mostly, you buy at $1 and they grow up.
Yeah, you'll see a couple little ones that were the last ones for $1.
And what were the price of these down at the store we were just at?
$6.99.
Makes
25% off $6.99.
And they were nowhere near this size.
No,
So it wasn't like they were big or something like that.
no, they were.
You got to know what you're looking for, that's for sure, and you got to know what you normally can get them
And
for.
that's a
Otherwise,
private guy. It's, you know, I buy these at the chains, which I'd rather deal with a private guy.
And then right dead center is a rainbow, Australian rainbow. That was one that was left. He had a school, probably about 20 of those tiger barbs over time, and had a long, I'm guessing a 60-gallon tank that they schooled in back and forth so beautifully. It was really a pleasure watching the schooling. There's that red-tailed shark that I'm so proud of down in the center, toward the bottom, coming across the left, chasing somebody. Last time we did a video update, I mentioned that I'd found 3 of them. They're small size, but one in each tank, and for whatever reason he's chasing that tiger barb. They're usually pretty docile fish, but something's got him going. And then the other thing you see there is some of those bronze catfish that Ray bred and have grown up. And so all 3 tanks now have 3 or 4 of those. Catfish down here in the corner.
Yeah, they.
Boy, and how.
I was actually down here one time showing my wife some of the eggs that a catfish lays on a glass, and while I was showing her, a catfish come up and laid more eggs on the glass. See?
This is how easy it's done.
That's what he does. She does, I guess.
It was rather interesting as I was cleaning out his tanks. The temperatures, the heaters were still on, the filters were still going, still aerating, and lights on them. But the tanks were in the mid-80s. That's warmer than I keep my tanks. So it was rather comfortable taking the fish out of there and getting the plants out and so forth. Until I got to about the 4th tank, and that's that big 70-gallon I was telling you about. And the heater obviously wasn't on, and the temperature was in the mid-60s. And the fish were just fine in that. Obviously it had gradually deteriorated down to that temperature and made for a little bit easier catching the fish. They weren't as agile as they are sometimes. And so it was kind of interesting, and it was almost like Ray was there doing something, because of the tanks that they had consolidated into, there was about 5 or 6 of them. One small tank, probably about a 5-gallon, 10-gallon, something like that. They had promised to a neighbor who used to come feed their fish when they were traveling. And so the message was, you know, clean everything out, but if you could leave a couple of fish in that tank, they're going to give it to the neighbor, which was fine. Hadn't thought about it. Started one side of the room, as you saw in some of the photos here, and the tank was warm. The next tank was warm, And then I went down to what would become the community tank once I got the yellow cichlid out of there. Cichlid, I guess it is, not cichlid. Cichlid. The water was cold, and I thought, okay. Well, how was I going to move fish from a warm tank into this community tank, which was almost 20 degrees difference? And as it turned out, when I got to the final tank, which had the most variety of fish that I could use to make a community tank for this child, that tank was also cold. And so it was almost like the only two tanks that were cold were the ones that were going to end up being a community tank and the one that the fish were going to move from to build that community tank. So it worked out rather well. But I haven't moved his plants into here yet. I don't know where I'm going to put them. I've got quite a few, mostly Java fern, which is almost impossible to kill. So in the last month or two, the tanks were pretty much unkempt. A lot of plants died in the process, but a lot of them, after they got trimmed back from the algae on them and so forth, were viable plants. So with his respect for plants and my respect for plants, I salvaged as much as I could. You see those cherry barbs down in the lower left, just going back behind the Amazon sword plant there. That was from his, there's one to the left, just by that plant. And so they migrated over. And there's also, I don't know if you're going to see them here, there's a couple panda cats. The panda catfish identified by that 3 black dots that they have in their tail, in their snout, and in their top fin. And there had to be, I'm going to say 6 or 8 of them. And the size would lead me to believe that they must have bred from the fish that were in there, because they were pretty small. And so he must have been having them breed too. Not that he tried very hard to do it, they just did breed. And lo and behold, I love those panda cats. They're very pretty. I'm not too enamored with the armored cats, but hey, you see the pepper cat going across the center there. That's the ones I have, and they've bred several times now, so there's all different sizes in here. So this tank probably has, maybe a dozen catfish in it now, and I always enjoy the catfish. I think they do a good job of making sure that if I overfeed a little bit, it doesn't cause any harm. And I'm trying to think what else is in here. That one center plant is doing beautifully. I don't know, I'm not sure what it is. It's a water sprite maybe, but it's rather majestic right now. And then those 3 Amazon swords, one to the left, one to the extreme right, and one just right of center with just a couple tall leaves coming out of it. They came in those plastic packages, with the wet crystal cell or whatever, the water retention cells that they sell in the PetSmarts these days. And so I tried it, and there was 3 in this one package for $9.99, and they're slowly losing the big long leaves that come in the package, and they're being replaced with the short ones, which make for a pretty looking plant. So this is doing well, and some of Ray's fish are thriving in their new environment that I just introduced them to last night. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here from his tank. I've got an infestation of snails, believe it or not. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see these or not. Let me zoom in a little bit and see. There's some on the front glass, and then there's some on the back glass. So I'll zoom into the back glass. And I'm not too concerned with them right now, but they're populating quite extensively. Not sure what to do about that. I used to have the yellow striped Laperinus, and they ate snails. It was fascinating to watch them eat snails, because they actually pick the snail up in their snout, toss it up so they can get it flipped over, and then suck out the inside of the snail. Quite a fascinating process to watch. The problem is the Laperinus, as beautiful as they are, grow very quickly into large-sized fish. So those end up giving away to Ray, and then eventually, over months, a year, whatever, they would die off there. So anyway, let's switch to the other tank. Now over here in the bow tank, you're going to see what I did with some of his larger fish. He always had nice angels, and in the left hand side of this tank, you see that big black angel slowly moving to the back. Right in front of him is a gourami, what kind is that? opaline, no, not opaline. It's a tan colored one, I forget what it's called. And then you see the 4 striped angels, big size. And I was down to just the 4 smaller angels, 2 of which you see right in the front there, the variegated black young angels. And there's a third one over on the left. There's 4 of them in there. And so I also had the pearl gouramis that you see there to the right. There's 4 of them in there. And there's some of his catfish coming across the front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They tend to school, and they seem to be very happy. They make the transition very nicely from a very cold tank. Warmed them up in the house here a little bit before I put them in this tank, of course. And so they came from a tank in the 65, 68 degree range in his basement without a heater in that particular tank to this tank, which is probably around 78. Letting them warm up a little bit in the house before we did that, of course. And trying to think, some of the serpay came across. The catfish, as I said, there may be a panda catfish or 2 in here, but mainly the bronze ones. And then there's that one catfish coming up the center to the left that's not a bronze catfish. It mixes in with them rather well, but it's a speckled catfish. Came from his tank. And everybody seems to be happy in their new environment. The challenge I have is with a huge pleco. Remember that pleco that he always was so proud of? And there's blue gouramis in here. There's 4 blue gouramis that came in from his tank. You see them right down in the lower center there, going back between the plants now. So this tank is a little overcrowded with big fish, but at least they're all of similar size and don't seem to be bothering each other. Here comes a blue gourami over on the right-hand side. And like I said, there's 4 of them in there someplace. Yep, there comes one out from the back toward the left. There he is. And you can see the contrast between the 2 there. Oh, what the heck is that called? I'm looking, trying to, that gold gourami. There's a name for that. Anyway, they came across rather well. And it was kind of funny because as I was cleaning out his tanks, every time I went through all the tanks and took all the plants out first. And I've got a huge bin of plants, mostly, as I said, Java fern, but anything else that he had in there. He bought some new plants recently, and I'm not sure which ones were there, whether they got lost in the darkness and lack of care over that time frame of the month while he was really sick. And his fish were down in the basement, and there was a rather steep stairs, as I can show you in this particular video earlier or later here. It was hard coming up and down those steps, and once he got weak, he couldn't get up and down. And while his wife would support him in any way she could, she was never the hobbyist that my wife is. If I weren't here, these would be perfectly fine with her because she can take down a tank and rebuild it and replant it and move fish around all on her own. Ray's wife, Joyce, was an admirer but never got involved, and in the last month ended up doing quite a bit of maintenance down there on his direction, especially in terms of feeding the fish. And so, especially that black angel. Look at that one on the right. Isn't that beautiful? He always had good luck with the angels. Sometimes they actually laid eggs. I don't think they ever bred for him. But that black angel is just gorgeous, as the others are. And then the blue gouramis. That not pearl gourami, the pink kissing gourami he had for so long, I think that died several months ago, so that wasn't around to be a problem, because that was huge. That would be a problem. His big pleco is in a bucket over here. It's about 30 inches long, and I got to tell you, in capturing him to put in the bucket, that was a task. That was the last thing I was going to do, is put him in that bucket. And I had watched Ray do it one time himself, and it was a challenge. There's no net big enough, and basically took the bucket, which was the width of the fish tank, put it in the water, and then chased the pleco into it. Well, that didn't last long. He was right back out of it, of course. And so then finally he got past the bucket. I turned the bucket around so that I had him trapped at one end of the fish tank, and his only choice was to go in the bucket. So as I brought the bucket up, oh my God, did he give me a shower. I'm down in the basement in my shirt sleeves because it's warm down there. And I was soaked by the time he got through, but I had him, and covered him up in a plastic bag and going to take him over to one of our local fish stores here and give them chance to sell it to somebody who can make a good home for it. It's a healthy fish, been around for a long time. He used to have two of them, both about the same size, and many months ago we lost one. And he had that long tank with a ruler, a yardstick next to it. So when we say the fish was 30 inches long, that's because we got it up against that ruler once in a while and you could measure it. And so it was interesting. It was the only thing in there. And if he had fixtures to clean, he would just put them in there, and a day later they'd be clean of all the algae on them. In fact, that reminds me. Oh, damn it. And so we will take the pleco to a new home, and the angels will share the wealth here as they make a new home in a reasonably warm tank compared to where they came from just recently. But I got to tell you, it was very. I use the word therapeutic. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but when you've had a friend for 64 years that you've shared a hobby with, because we both raised tropical fish from our teenage years. We used to go out and catch fish in the ponds and bring them home. And then we had a pet shop in town that we used to both work at, so we got discounts on the fish, and when we didn't, we bought them anyway. And so we've had a long-term relationship with this hobby and each other. And Ray didn't want an obituary, didn't want a wake, didn't want a funeral, so he basically had a cremation and ashes. And you miss that closure. And for his wife to allow me to come and take over the basement to do this cleaning out was a closure point for me. And I really enjoyed it. It took about 5 hours to clean those 5 tanks. And with each tank, I would take the aeration out and I would disconnect the pumps and wrap the wire around it, put it together with all the different pumps he had, because he had 22 tanks and most of them had aeration by separate pumps. And lo and behold, then I would take the heater out and unplug that and wrap it up, put it in the other tank. Take the many thermometers out, put them in one tank just for storage. And then take the filters off the back, take the filter bags out, clean them out, put them on rack. And so hopefully she finds somebody out there that can really take advantage of these. She's not looking to sell them at all. And so if anybody is really interested and sees this video in a reasonable time frame, I'd be glad to put you in touch with her. Here comes the big catfish over on the right hand side here. He's the biggest thing in there. He should go with the pleco to a new home, but I'm not going to let him go. He's part of the family. And so it really was quiet time, just Ray and I down there, me doing the work and him in my mind as I was taking care of things and doing him final service. So it was a nice closure time together. But it does give me pause for thought when we have these hobbies and we get so involved with them. And I watch many of these YouTube fish room videos where people have a lot of tanks and beautiful fish. And so it was very therapeutic to be able to help out, and left with each tank slowly being emptied out. It was funny because every time I got finished and I thought, all right, there's no more fish left in this tank, and I would go back and look, and he has lights, these fluorescent lights hanging over each tank, and I would look, and sure enough, there's 2 more small fish. And where did they come from? And the catfish especially, he's been breeding the catfish, so there's a lot of little ones down there. But this one particular tank had a lot of growing algae, almost like fur, on the back glass. And sure enough, there were some very healthy-looking young guppies, female guppies, hiding in there. And so when I left it alone for a while, I looked back, and all of a sudden there's 3 fish. And I'm thinking, darn it, where were they? And they disappeared immediately. I said, aha! They were using that for cover and hiding in that algae. So I had to take the big net and go up and down each part of the glass in the algae to make sure there was nothing else hiding in there. But anyway, accomplished quite a bit. By the time we got through, it was a big help to his wife to have that taken care of, and all the fish found a new home. So all is well. I've got a partner here also that's going to help distribute the plants between us. And like you see, the tank is busy with a lot of catfish running around and being very happy in their new home. So, R.I.P. dear friend Ray. It's been a good run, and in our conversations we were talking about an obituary the day before he died, and I was challenging him to come up with 3 words, even though he wasn't going to have an obituary, as it turns out. And what 3 words would you use to describe your life? A little exercise I did a number of years ago. And lo and behold, he came up with very quickly, a life complete. And I thought, oh, you mean like a life fulfilled? He says, no, a life completed is good. And so I will title this YouTube video in memory of Ray Williams, 76 years old, at least 70 years of that, a tropical fish hobbyist. And I guess the only time he didn't have a fish tank was when he was at sea in the Navy. He served in the Navy a number of years. And so it was sad to lose my partner there in that sense. Our wives understood and have been very supportive. So it's been a good run, and a life completed certainly says it. I hope you can say the same, and like I said before, give some thought to what's going to happen when your time comes to those living creatures that you've enjoyed so much and that are part of your life right now. Who's going to take care of them? How are they going to move on? What's the legacy? Hey, have a very happy holiday, happy New Year, and we'll see where this takes us in the future. By the way, just in summary, interesting, Ray's Fish Rooms videos, of which there's a number of them out there, have garnished as much as 20,000 views each. And so he has something between 50 and 60,000 views between those videos, 2 of which are well above the 20,000 mark. I have my own videos up there. I do the video work for both of them, and I don't get anywhere near that. So don't know what the difference is, but he's certainly been a star, and we'll miss him. Take care now.